I didn't say a word when he said it. I just sat there, still holding the fork with a bite of Eggs Benedict halfway to my mouth, like I hadn't heard him correctly. But I had, every word, and each syllable felt like a pin pushed slowly into my chest. The table fell silent. His fiancée, Kelsey, didn't look surprised at all. In fact, she smiled down at her mimosa like she'd just won something. I looked around, expecting someone, anyone, to say something, but no one did. Not my son's best friend Darren, not my sister-in-law Rhonda, not even my own brother, who was sitting across from me. They just lowered their eyes, as if they weren't sitting there when I wrote the check for the venue deposit 6 months ago. As if they hadn't watched me pay for the flowers, the catering, even the custom invitations. "Excuse me?" I finally said, quietly. I wasn't angry yet. I was still confused, stunned. "Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing." "You heard me," Dylan said, stabbing a piece of bacon with his fork. "It's not personal. It's just that the wedding is going to be small, tasteful, and curated. We can't have drama. Kelsey and I decided it's best if you don't come." Kelsey placed a hand gently over his. "We still love you, Susan. It's just, we want a different kind of energy at our wedding. Different kind of energy." That's what they called it now. I nodded slowly. I didn't trust myself to speak again. My mouth was dry, and I could feel heat climbing up my neck. I thought if I opened my mouth again, I'd start crying or yelling, maybe both, and I didn't want to give them that. So I folded my napkin, placed it carefully on the table, and stood up. "Where are you going?" Kelsey asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I think you made it clear I'm not welcome," I said, voice low. "And if that's how it is, then I shouldn't be here either." Dylan didn't look up. He kept eating. No one followed me. I walked out of the restaurant, past the hostess stand, past a waiter who tried to smile at me, and out onto the sidewalk. The sun was blinding, and I stood there for a moment, just trying to remember where I parked. I didn't cry, not yet. Back in the car, I sat for a few minutes, gripping the steering wheel. My hands were shaking. My son, my only child, had just told me I was too greedy to attend a wedding I paid for. That's what I got after decades of being his mother. Of working 2 jobs when his father died just to keep food on the table. Of skipping vacations, selling jewelry, and dipping into retirement savings so he wouldn't have student loans. Of being the one who co-signed his first apartment lease when Kelsey couldn't get approved on her own. And now, after all that, I wasn't even worth the chair at their wedding. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of water and sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd written the check for the photographer. The same table where Dylan and Kelsey had sat with me 6 months ago, drinking my wine and eating my food while they showed me Pinterest boards for their dream wedding. I opened the drawer where I kept the binder, the wedding binder. I had started it myself, when Kelsey got engaged. It had everything: contracts, vendor contacts, payment receipts, timelines. I turned page after page, seeing my own handwriting everywhere. Deposit paid, $2,500. Venue, Magnolia Hill Estate. Cake tasting with Dylan, balance due in August. DJ final payment to be made by Susan, per Kelsey's request. And then I saw the floral invoice. I remembered that day. Kelsey had picked peonies, even though I told her they were out of season. It didn't matter, she wanted them. I paid the premium. I closed the binder slowly. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in bed staring at the ceiling, playing the moment over and over again. His voice: "You old greedy woman." It was the cruelty that got me, not even the exclusion. That was just a final stamp on something that had been happening slowly for years. It was how easily he said it, how rehearsed it sounded. The next morning, I called the venue. "This is Susan Marshall. I'm the one who booked the wedding at Magnolia Hill on September 14th. "Yes, of course," the coordinator said. "Is everything all right? I'd like to review the contract with you." I spent the next hour going over every clause, every line item, every policy. And then I called the florist, the cake designer, the DJ, the tent rental, the caterer, one by one. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just asked questions. Whose name was on the payment? Mine. Who had signed the agreement? Me. Who had the right to make changes or cancellations? Every time, the answer was the same: "You do, ma'am." That evening, I sat back down at the kitchen table. I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and made a list. At the top, I wrote, "The wedding I paid for, and I no longer am." I listed every vendor, every contact number, every amount. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "Hi, Margot," I said. "I have a quick question about contract rights and cancellations. Hypothetically, what happens if someone pays for a wedding they're then uninvited to?" Margot laughed, but it wasn't a funny laugh. "Tell me everything," And I did. What came next didn't happen all at once. I wasn't impulsive. I didn't want to be petty, but I wanted control back. I wanted the respect they thought I didn't deserve. I wanted Dylan to remember that there's a difference between a mother's love and a blank check. Over the next few days, I started the process. Quietly, calmly, methodically, and Dylan didn't even know it yet. He had no idea what was coming. The first call I made that Monday morning was to the venue, Magnolia Hill Estate. I had the woman's direct number, Hannah, the events coordinator, and I didn't bother pretending I was calling with a question this time. "Hi, Hannah. It's Susan Marshall again. I need to cancel the September 14th event." There was a pause. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything all right?" "Yes, I just need to cancel. Per the contract, I understand that if the cancellation is made within 90 days and the client is the sole payer listed, the refundable portion is 60%. Another pause, and then she answered with a professional calm. "Yes, that's correct. I'll start the cancellation paperwork and send it to the email address on file." "Make sure it goes to me," I said. "Only me, Susan Marshall." That email ends in @verizon.net. "Do not communicate with anyone else regarding this booking unless I personally authorize it." "Yes, ma'am." I hung up and moved to the next name on the list. The florist, then the DJ, then the tent company. By the time I got to the cake designer, I had already gone through the same process 5 times. I had most of the vendors saved as favorites in my phone from earlier in the year. Each call started the same way. "Hi, this is Susan Marshall. I'm calling about the Johnson Marshall wedding on September 14th. I'd like to cancel my services." The response was always some variation of surprise or concern, but I wasn't interested in explaining. I kept it short. I kept it clean. The refund amounts varied. Some deposits were partially refundable, some weren't. I didn't care. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about sending a message, about drawing a line where I should have drawn it years ago. By noon, I had canceled 6 of the major vendors. By 3 p.m., the photographer confirmed that she had voided the contract. At 4:15, the event rentals company emailed me a confirmation of cancellation. At 5:30, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down at the kitchen table again. Same chair, same view, but something was different. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I had taken something back. Not revenge, not satisfaction, just control. That night, I slept for 6 hours straight. No tossing, no nightmares. But the next morning, I woke up to the first sign that they were catching on. At 8:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. "Dylan, Mom, I just got a weird email from Hannah at Magnolia Hill. She said the wedding booking is cancelled. Please tell me this is a mistake." I didn't reply. At 9:08, he called. I let it ring. At 9:13, another text. "Dylan, what the hell is going on?" I turned my phone off and made breakfast. 2 hours later, a voicemail came in. I didn't listen to it, but I watched the transcription preview pop up on my lock screen. "Mom, what are you doing? You're sabotaging everything. We trusted you. This is completely immature. You need to fix this now. Call me back." I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. I reviewed every transaction from the past 6 months related to the wedding. Then I made a folder and labeled it, "Wedding Expenses." I pulled every receipt, scanned every contract, printed all the emails. I wanted to be ready for the accusations, because I knew they were coming. At 3:37 p.m., Kelsey called. I didn't answer. Then she left a voicemail, and this one I listened to, twice. "Hi Susan. I don't know what's going on with you, but this behavior is completely out of line. This isn't just your event, it's our wedding. You're making a scene. And honestly, if you keep acting like this, you're just proving our point about not inviting you. I hope you're proud of yourself." Click. That was her tone. Cold, dismissive, like she was still in charge of something. She wasn't. Later that night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Hello, Mrs. Marshall? This is Ben Carter from Golden Grove Photography. I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to double check. Did you really want to cancel the Marshall Johnson booking? I got your email, but then I received a call from a woman named Kelsey this afternoon saying there's been some confusion." "There's no confusion," I said. "The contract was under my name. The deposit was paid by me. The cancellation stands." A pause. "Understood. Thank you for confirming." That told me everything I needed to know. Kelsey was scrambling. She was trying to rebook things under her name. Without the money. That same night, I got a group of emails, each from a different vendor, each stating that they had received follow-up calls from someone named Dylan or Kelsey trying to change the payment method or rebook. Each email ended the same way. "We informed them that, per our policy, all decisions are restricted to the name listed on the original contract, Susan Marshall. By the end of the week, almost everything was undone. The only thing left was the dress. I knew that Kelsey's wedding dress had been custom-made at a boutique in town. I also knew that I had written the check for the deposit when she and I visited the shop together back in March. The final balance had been due the week prior, and I suspected they were waiting for the last payment to release it. So I called the boutique. "Hi, this is Susan Marshall. I'm calling regarding a custom gown for Kelsey Johnson, scheduled for pickup in September." I was the person who placed the deposit. "Yes, Ms. Marshall," the woman said cheerfully. "We still have the dress here. It's almost finished. I'd like to cancel the order." Another pause. "Oh, well, I'd need to confirm the cancellation policy with our manager, but since you're the payer of record, you do have that right." "Please do. I'll hold." A few minutes later, she came back. "We can halt the completion and apply a partial refund to your original payment method." "Do it," I said. "And please don't release any details of this call to anyone else." "Yes, ma'am." That evening, around 9 p.m., Dylan came to my house. He didn't call first. He just showed up and knocked on my front door like nothing had happened. When I opened it, he looked tired, angry, confused. "We need to talk. I think everything's been said." He pushed past me and walked into the kitchen like he still lived there. I followed, slowly. "This is insane, Mom," he said, standing by the sink. "Why would you do this? Why would you ruin everything?" "I didn't ruin anything, Dylan. I paid for something. Then you uninvited me from it." His jaw clenched. "It wasn't meant to be personal, it was personal. You called me greedy. You told me I wasn't welcome. You said the wedding didn't need my energy, so I left, just like you asked. That didn't mean cancel everything. You didn't want me at the wedding, Dylan, but all of it was in my name, my money, my signature, my risk. So I exercised my right to cancel what I paid for." He stared at me like he didn't know who I was. "You didn't even warn me," he said. I looked him in the eye. "You didn't warn me either." He didn't have a response. After a long silence, he finally turned and walked toward the door. "You think you've won something," he muttered as he stepped outside. "But all you did was prove why you shouldn't have been there in the first place." I didn't reply. I closed the door, and I locked it. For the next 2 days after Dylan came to my door, there was complete silence. No calls, no texts, no emails. I thought maybe they'd gotten the message. Or maybe they were too busy scrambling to salvage what was left of the wedding to bother talking to me. Either way, I was fine with the quiet. I had no interest in more arguments or justifications. I had said what I needed to say. Then Friday morning came. I was in my garden pulling weeds when I heard the alert from my phone on the porch. I wiped my hands, walked over, and picked it up. There was a new email from Magnolia Hill Estate. The subject line was, "Unauthorized contact regarding cancelled booking." I opened it. "Dear Ms. Marshall, we wanted to inform you that earlier this morning we received a call from a person identifying herself as the bride, Ms. Kelsey Johnson, attempting to reinstate the September 14th reservation. As per your instructions and in accordance with our contract, we advised her that only you, as the contract holder and payer of record, are authorized to make changes. No reinstatement has been made. Please let us know if you have any questions. Hannah Carter, Events Coordinator *. I stared at the screen for a full minute. They weren't just trying to fix things now. They were trying to take them back behind my back. I walked inside and opened my laptop. I forwarded the email to my lawyer Margot with the note, "They're still trying. Please advise on how I should document this in case things escalate." Margot responded 20 minutes later, "You're doing exactly what you should. Keep everything. Don't respond to them directly. And if they try to access funds or claim breach, I'm ready to step in." That gave me some peace. At least I wasn't crazy for being cautious. I saved the email and added it to my wedding folder. At 2 p.m. that day, I got a message from a name I hadn't seen in months. Carolyn, my former coworker and one of Dylan's godmothers. "Susan, I just heard from Rhonda that the wedding might be falling apart. She says the rehearsal dinner is still on for tomorrow, but now it's invite only and they're acting like everything's fine. What's going on?" That told me everything I needed to know. They were still trying to pretend nothing had happened. I didn't reply. By Saturday morning, the tension was eating away at me again. I thought I had turned the page on it, but now it was creeping back in. I found myself pacing the living room, checking my phone, waiting for some other update. Then, just before noon, I got a call from Tamara, one of the original bridesmaids. She had always been polite to me. I hesitated, then answered. "Hi, Tamara." "Oh my God, Susan," she said. "I'm so sorry to call like this, but are you okay? I just found out everything was cancelled. The vendors, the venue, the dress, everything. I'm fine, They're saying it was a mistake, that the vendors double-booked or the payments didn't go through. Of course they're saying that. Tamara sighed on the other end. I don't believe them. I know it was you, and I don't blame you. That caught me off guard. You don't? No. I saw the way Kelsey talked to you last month at that tasting. I saw Dylan just sit there. They've been awful, and now they're trying to cover it up instead of taking responsibility. Are you still in the wedding? She paused. They kicked me out last night because I asked too many questions. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And good for you. After we hung up, I sat down and stared at the kitchen wall. The truth was, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt tired. I hadn't expected them to apologize, but the fact that they were now lying to friends and relatives about what happened made everything feel smaller, petty, like it had all been for nothing. That night, around 6:30 p.m., I got a text from my neighbor Linda. Just saw a bunch of cars down at the old Mitchell's farmhouse. Isn't that where the rehearsal dinner was supposed to be? Are they still doing it? I looked out the window. Sure enough, the place was lit up. The house had been rented out for years as an event space. Dylan and Kelsey had booked it for their rehearsal dinner. I had paid the deposit myself, months ago. I had canceled it a week earlier. Apparently, they had rebooked it under a different name. I stood there for a few minutes before finally grabbing my keys and walking out to the car. I didn't even know what I planned to do. I wasn't dressed up. I wasn't invited. But I was done letting them pretend I didn't exist. I pulled up and parked 2 houses down, out of sight. I could see the twinkle lights strung up in the trees. Tables set with white tablecloths. Dozens of guests mingling on the grass with wine glasses. And there, in the middle of it all, was my son, laughing. Kelsey stood beside him in a white dress, probably a rehearsal gown. She looked composed, polished, fake. I didn't get out of the car. I watched from the driver's seat as they smiled and toasted and gave speeches. It was all surface, all performance. I could see it in their movements. Every gesture was rehearsed. When Dylan took the microphone, I thought maybe, just maybe, he would say something real. But he didn't. Thanks to everyone for being here, he said. It means a lot. Despite some last-minute challenges with vendors, we've pulled it together. That's what marriage is about, right? Adapting, pushing forward. The crowd laughed. I turned off the car and drove home. I didn't cry that night. I didn't rage. I just sat in bed with the lamp on and flipped through the last few pages of the wedding binder. There were blank spaces left for things that would never happen. Menu finalization, seating chart, vendor contact sheet. I grabbed a pen. In thick black ink, I wrote across the top page, "No wedding." Then I closed it and put it away for good. Sunday morning started like any other. I got up early, took the trash out, made coffee, watered the potted basil that was starting to wilt by the window. Everything felt too quiet. It was supposed to be the day of my son's wedding, September 14th. The date had been circled on my calendar for nearly a year. I hadn't taken it off, even after everything. I left it there, as a reminder, as something final. At 9:43 a.m., I got a message from Rhonda, my sister-in-law. Susan, I don't know what's going on, but they're panicking. Nothing is ready. Flowers didn't arrive. No photographer. No cateris. Kelsey is having a full meltdown. They said you've sabotaged everything. Is that true? I stared at my phone. I didn't answer. I didn't owe Rhonda anything. She was there at that brunch and didn't say a word when they called me greedy. Now she wanted answers. I poured myself a second cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The same spot where I'd signed the venue check. The same spot where Dylan had once told me I was the only reason this wedding is even happening. And now it wasn't happening. At 10:22 a.m., my neighbor Linda called. Are you seeing this? She asked. Seeing what? They're setting up a tent in the Johnsons' backyard. Folding chairs, streamers, plastic tablecloths. It looks like a barbecue, not a wedding. They moved it there? Looks like it. A bunch of cars are arriving. There's no music. Just people looking confused. Did something happen? Yeah, I said. Something happened. I thanked her and hung up. An hour later, a voicemail popped up. From Dylan. I don't know what you think you've accomplished, but you ruined everything. This day was supposed to be ours. And now Kelsey is crying in the bathroom. Half the guests left already. You did this. You always have to control everything. You couldn't just stay away. You had to burn it all down. I deleted it without listening a second time. By early afternoon, the messages started coming in faster, from old friends, people I hadn't heard from in months. Carolyn, Darren, even a former coworker who had RSVP'd to the original wedding and now didn't know what to do with the hotel reservation she booked. The rumors were spreading. The cover story Dylan and Kelsey had tried to maintain, about vendor mishaps and miscommunications, was starting to fall apart. People were asking questions. And for the first time, Dylan didn't have an answer that made him look like the victim. At 2 p.m., I checked Facebook. Kelsey had posted a single black and white photo of her and Dylan standing in a backyard, in front of what looked like a folding table decorated with fake flowers. Her caption read, "Not what we planned, but still filled with love. Thank you to those who stayed." Only a few people had commented. One of them, her cousin, wrote, "So sorry things didn't go as expected. Heard some vendors flaked last minute. Hope you get refunded." Another wrote, "Honestly, you deserved better than this." I stared at that one for a while. You deserved better than this. That part was true, but not about her. At 4:13 p.m., my phone rang again. "Margot, my lawyer. Hey, just checking in. Did anything escalate today?" "Not yet," I said, "but it might." "Do they know you're represented?" "They should, but I don't think that's what's bothering them right now." "What do you think is?" "They can't explain what happened without telling the truth. That's what's bothering them." Margot paused. "Good, let them squirm. Let me know if anyone tries anything stupid." I hung up and went out to sit on the porch. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the front yard. I could hear birds, a dog barking 2 houses down. Nothing unusual, except that the whole day felt like it had split off from reality, like I was watching a version of my life I didn't recognize anymore. I used to dream about Dylan's wedding. When he was 12 and still called me Mama, I used to imagine helping him pick out tuxedos. I imagined holding his first child one day, being part of a family. That's all I ever wanted. Not control, not credit, just to belong. And now? Now I was the villain in a story they had rewritten to fit their own shame. Let them. Around 6 p.m., Tamara texted again. People started leaving right after they cut the grocery store cake. They're telling everyone the wedding was always meant to be private, but no one believes it. Most of us just feel sorry for them now. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't respond. I went back inside, closed the blinds, turned on the kettle. The silence in the house wasn't heavy like it had been in the weeks before. It was calm, still, a kind of quiet I could finally live with. At 9:17 p.m., Dylan sent one last message. "You'll regret this." I looked at it, then I blocked his number, not out of anger, not even out of grief, just because I was done. They had spent months preparing a wedding that was never really about love. It was about appearances, about debt disguised as celebration, about using my money to play pretend. And when I walked away, they were forced to see how much of it depended on me. They told me I wasn't part of their day, so I made sure the day didn't happen. Monday morning came with a sense of stillness I hadn't felt in a long time. It was the day after the wedding that never happened. The sun came up like always, but everything else felt different, quieter. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, watching the steam rise. There were no more calls, no more texts, no frantic voicemails, just silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel dread in the silence. I felt relief. At around 10 a.m., I opened my laptop to check emails. A few messages from old coworkers, some spam, and then one that made my stomach tighten slightly. The subject line said, "Attempted charge reversal. Golden Grove Photography." I clicked it. "Hi Susan, we wanted to inform you that someone attempted to dispute the original payment made for the wedding photography services under your name. Since the charge was made using your card and not theirs, we flagged it as unauthorized and closed the dispute. We wanted you to be aware. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to discuss further. Ben Carter *. They were trying to reverse the payments." I forwarded the email to Margot, then sat back and stared out the window. It wasn't even surprising at that point, just another desperate move in a long string of bad decisions. A few hours later, Margot called. "Just got your forward," she said. "Do you want me to draft a cease and desist?" "Not yet," I replied. "Let's see how far they try to push this." She paused. "They're trying to hurt you, Susan. Not financially, personally. They want to rattle you. I know. You don't have to carry this alone." "I'm not anymore." We hung up, and I sat there for a moment before going into the spare bedroom where I kept the wedding binder. I hadn't touched it since Saturday. I pulled it from the shelf and opened to the last page. My note was still there. No wedding. Big black letters. I tore the page out, and I fed it through the shredder. I wasn't keeping remnants of something that never respected me. Later that afternoon, I ran into Linda, my neighbor, while getting the mail. She walked up the sidewalk toward me with her sunglasses perched on her head and that tone people use when they're about to ask something they shouldn't. "Hey," she said. "So, did you hear how the event went yesterday?" I heard. She hesitated, fidgeting with her keys. "They said the flowers got delivered to the wrong place, that it wasn't your fault." I just looked at her. She shifted. "But between you and me, it was pretty obvious something went wrong. That backyard looked like a rushed potluck, not a wedding." I nodded. "Sounds about right." She waited, like I was going to say more. I didn't. "Well," she said, stepping back, "if you ever need anything, just saying." I smiled politely. "Thanks." That evening, I got an email from Carolyn. "Susan, I just wanted to say I support you. I know there's been a lot of talk, but people are starting to see the truth. You don't owe anyone explanations, but I wanted you to know that not everyone believes the version they're selling. Stay strong." I appreciated that more than I expected. I didn't respond, there was nothing to say, but I read her message twice before deleting it. By Tuesday, the gossip had shifted. People weren't just confused anymore, they were curious, and the cracks were showing. A woman I barely knew from the church choir, Marilyn, called to ask if I was okay. "I know it's none of my business," she said, "but I heard Dylan and Kelsey tried to book a new venue last minute and got denied. Something about payment history. I wanted to ask if you needed anything." "No," I said, "but thank you." That was the fourth person in 2 days who'd asked if I was okay. It struck me how no one had asked me that before the wedding fell apart. Not when I was paying for everything, not when I was being excluded. Only now, when things were visibly crumbling, did they remember I was human too. By Wednesday, I decided to take a break from town altogether. I packed a small bag, got in my car, and drove out to the coast. A little motel in Mendocino I used to visit back when Dylan was a kid. I hadn't been there in over a decade. I checked in, asked for a room with a window facing the ocean, and turned off my phone. That night, I stood by the window watching the waves crash quietly in the distance. I thought about all the energy I had wasted trying to keep a version of family that never actually saw me as part of it. I had given too much time, too much forgiveness, too much money, and now that it was over, I could finally admit that I had spent years walking on eggshells around people who would throw me away the moment I stopped giving. No one should have to earn a seat at their own child's wedding. The next morning, I checked my phone and saw that Dylan had tried to call again, twice. Then there were 3 missed calls from an unknown number. No voicemails this time, just the attempts. I blocked the new number. Friday morning, a text came in from Kelsey. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Just seeing her name again made my stomach tighten. I held the phone in my hand for a few seconds and then, without hesitation, deleted the conversation thread entirely. That afternoon, I got a message from the bank confirming that no fraudulent activity had been validated in the attempted chargebacks. All payments stood. Good. By the weekend, I was back home. Nothing dramatic happened. No more messages. No more whispers from the neighborhood. Just normalcy. I spent the weekend cleaning the house. I donated the fake floral centerpieces Kelsey had once made me order in bulk. I dropped off an unused stack of mason jar candles at the local thrift store. Piece by piece, I erased their wedding from my life. Not because I was bitter, because I was ready to stop holding space for people who didn't hold space for me. It had been 3 weeks since the wedding that never happened. I hadn't seen Dylan. I hadn't heard from Kelsey. The neighborhood, for the most part, had moved on. People whispered less. Some stopped making eye contact. A few smiled at me at the grocery store like they weren't sure if I was someone to pity or admire. I didn't mind either way. I had gone back to a routine that felt like mine again. Coffee on the porch, slow walks in the morning. I stopped checking my phone obsessively. I deleted every contact connected to the wedding. Caterers, vendors, florists. I removed the folder from my computer, unsubscribed from bridal mailing lists. I didn't just let go of the wedding, I let go of the illusion that I'd ever been truly included. One afternoon, while pulling weeds in the backyard, I saw Rhonda walking along the fence line. She hesitated before speaking. "Hey, Susan." I wiped my hands on my pants and looked up. She stood there for a moment like she was waiting for permission to keep talking. I wanted to say, I didn't agree with what Dylan said at brunch. I just didn't know what to do. It was so fast. "You didn't say anything." "I know, I should have." I didn't respond. She looked down at her shoes. "They're not doing well," she added. I looked at her. "What do you mean?" "They're fighting." Kelsey blames Dylan for the collapse. Dylan's blaming everyone else. I think the pressure finally broke them. "They're married though, right?" She paused. "Legally?" "No, they never filed the papers. Just had that backyard thing, no license. It wasn't official." I didn't say anything, just nodded. "They don't know what to do now," she added, almost as if hoping for a reaction. "It's like they thought everything would just fall into place, but now it's just quiet. People are distancing." That sounded familiar. When she realized I wasn't going to give her more, she shifted her weight. "Anyway," she said, "I just wanted you to know. I wish things had gone differently." "Me too," I said, "but they didn't." She nodded and walked away. The next day, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten envelope, no return address. I opened it carefully, and inside was a folded sheet of lined paper. It was from Dylan. "Mom, I know I messed up. I don't even know where to begin. I shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have let her speak to you that way. I let a lot of things slide because I didn't want to deal with conflict. But that day, at brunch, I made a choice, and now I'm living with it. I thought I was protecting our day, but I destroyed it instead. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. No return address, no number, just the letter. I folded it slowly and placed it in the kitchen drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I didn't even think about what he wanted me to do with it. Some things aren't about closure. Some things are about finally telling the truth, even if it's too late. That weekend, I drove out to Sebastopol to visit Carla, a woman I'd met through a local widow support group. We weren't especially close, but she had a quiet strength I appreciated. She ran a small art studio out of her garage, teaching ceramics and watercolor to retired women like us. When I showed up, she handed me a cup of tea and pointed to a stool. Make something, doesn't have to be pretty. So I did. I shaped a lopsided bowl. My hands weren't steady, the clay wobbled, but I kept going. By the time I left, I'd signed up for her weekly class. It was a start. The following week, I cleaned out the guest room, took down the framed photos of Dylan and packed them in a box. I didn't throw them out. I just didn't want to see them every day. I replaced the largest frame with a picture of me and my sister from a trip we took to New Mexico 10 years ago. We were smiling, no tension in our shoulders. No one was waiting for money or forgiveness, just joy. A few days later, Linda knocked on my door holding a casserole dish. I made too much, she said, and I figured you probably weren't cooking for anyone else right now. She didn't mean it cruelly, just matter of fact. I took the dish and thanked her. She stood there for a second, then said, "You look lighter." "Maybe I am." She smiled and left. That night, I sat down with a notebook and wrote 3 things I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud yet. I was not wrong to cancel the wedding. I do not owe people a version of me that is easy to accept. I will no longer pay to be included. I tore out the page and taped it inside the kitchen cabinet. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Tamara. She had moved to San Diego to take a job offer that came up after everything fell apart. She said it was the best decision she ever made and asked if I wanted to visit sometime in the fall. I told her I'd think about it. Maybe I would. The truth was, I didn't know what was coming next. But for the first time in years, I wasn't organizing around someone else's expectations. I wasn't waiting for Dylan to call or for Kelsey to apologize or for the community to understand. I had my house, my quiet, and I had the satisfaction of knowing that when they tried to cut me out, I didn't scream, or beg, or threaten. I just walked away. And then I took everything with me.